Talking about American Dream.
Yes.
And somebody's comment that it was urgent, angry, and self-aware, and that's exactly what 2017 needs.
Yeah.
How would you describe it?
It's tough for me. I'm not describing music to me is tough. I mean, in some ways, describing music that I make is tough because part of the reason to make it is to relieve myself of the pressure to have to describe it. Like it's an object that I like to make. I just wanted to make a record that felt appropriate to me. It's all a gut thing, so it's not very intellectual. Which is funny because self-aware comment indicates some sort of intellectuality, and there's lots of intellectuality going on to construct the thing, but I don't know why it worked the way it worked, really, or what makes it work, other than in a kind of microcosmic way.
And it's better not to overanalyze these things, right?
Well, I mean, I like to analyze stuff, to pick apart, see why it works, and see how I can learn from stuff. But for myself, I'm more of a gut person than analytical when it comes to making things. I just kind of push until it sounds right to me. And then in retrospect, listening to it, it was a darker record than I'm used to making. I didn't plan for that at all. It's just sort of like what wound up happening.
So there was a time in the not so distant past when it seemed LCD Soundsystem might be a thing of the past.
Yeah.
And among others, of course, David Bowie had something to do with encouraging you to bring LCD back with something new and different. And he made the comment that I think resonates not only with you, but with many people, that if you're not uncomfortable, you're not doing anything.
Yeah, I've since found out that he said that a lot, which I find really funny. No, it was a very small thing. It was just a small comment when we were talking about something else, and I was talking, and he's like, "Are you going to make music again?" And I said, "Well, funny you should mention it." Yeah, it was a thing of the past. I think it is both a thing of the past, still kind of a thing of the past, that part. Like, I feel like that's a chapter of the band that opened and closed. And then we took some time off where I got to have a life and everybody got to have a different life. And even though we're back as a band, I think it's very different in my mind. Like, it's a different time for us. Having a big break was really nice. I don't think we'll ever have one again. It's nice to kind of just be like, that's done, and I can start again. It was very hard to move on then because it felt like it was an expectation, and it was nice to like let all that go, and then come back, even though it was a bad idea to come back or a good idea, both of them at the same time. And I like that. I like being able to only come back because it felt like it would be nice to make music again and to play with people again, rather than well, it's time to make another record, which is, what usually happens. I mean, I've watched a million rock documentaries where people talk about like a great first record and a bad second record because people didn't have time. They had to quickly go make another record, whereas they had time to write that first record. And I've never really had that for myself. I always like took time to make the records, but it was nice to live a life a bit and fill up again before going back to make something again. Like fill up with life and be able to write from that space rather than only write about tour. Because I only really write about what I'm thinking about. And if I'm on tour all the time, all I write about is being in a band and being on tour. Which is fine, but I've pretty much checked that box.
Speaking of filling up life in between, being a father of a 2.5-year-old is certainly a change.
Yeah, it's pretty cool though.
Life-changing for you and for...
Yeah, I mean, it's life-changing for him because he wasn't there. Now he's here. I just liked having a bit of a life, and he's on the road with us right now. He's sleeping in the hotel right now. But it's a big change. It's not as big a change as, I don't know. Maybe it's such a big change that you don't realize it. Because I still feel like the same person. I'm doing the same job. I guess I'm just less stressed about it. I'm less stressed about the work because it's not as relatively. It's a smaller thing than it was once. Like the kid is a bigger thing than the work. So I'm not as paralyzed by anxiety like I used to be. Much easier to make stuff. Much easier to make stuff, actually. So I grew up with a lot of like current rock in my house before I would have been choosing it. So, whereas when you're the oldest kid, you're kind of the pioneer in finding new music, or you're listening to what your parents are listening to for a certain degree. But for me, I was like growing up with like my brother's music. So by the time I was like 6, 7, 8, I was already listening to what a 15, 16, 17-year-old listened to, because that's what, whatever my brother listened to, I thought was good. And then I had my best friend across the street, Griff. He had older brothers, and they had three older brothers that all had 3 different types of musical taste. One guy was like a new wave guy. One guy was into like New York, like sort of like Stooges and MC5 and Television and Dead Boys. And another guy was into like really heavy acid rock, like Sabbath. And so I could grow up and kind of like could listen to really amazing music as a kid. I remember when we were like 8 or 9 running around singing the song Dog Food by Iggy Pop. I'm thinking that was just like not having any context for whether that was pop music or weird music. I had no really way to measure that. It was just like what we were listening to. And so my formative years, the time when things are the most important to you, when you're between like 12 and 16, when everything is like a hammer to your soul, that's the music, the early 80s, late 70s, because I'm 16 in 86, so kind of leading up to that period was the music of my life. And it's kind of imprinted on me. The way people listen to music, I think, has changed a lot, which is exciting in a way I just don't quite understand it. Like the amount of things people stream now is such a number I don't understand. And for our band, like, we sold a good amount of actual records, but our streaming numbers are not that big. I'm just learning this stuff now, And there are other artists who don't sell any records at all, but they stream, like, every kid listens to their song over and over and over and over and over. And it's kind of, it's interesting, because I don't have any judgment about that. I find that really exciting that people can kind of listen to whatever they want. But I'm also kind of sometimes disturbed that now that we can hear anything in the world, like anything at all, like you can kind of listen to almost anything that's ever been recorded right now. Like you could just open a computer and find it. Like you can find like North African funk from 1975, like right now. But instead we kind of consume the same things. It's like there's like a flattening of taste. Even though there's so much diversity in music, that there are these giant hits that are going to, I think, mean a lot to to younger people when they get older. That hopefully they'll remember them. They'll be meaningful to them the way that big hits were to me. I went and saw Metallica a little while ago at a place where I think the Giants play in New Jersey, the football team. It's like 70,000 capacity crowd. And they weren't, I mean, they had a new record kind of, but it was just, they were just playing a show. There was no like special occasion about it other than Metallica was playing a show. And 70,000 people showed up. And pretty much everybody knew every song and sang along to the entire thing. And I was just like, this puts into perspective like how big our festival headlining band is. You know what I mean? There's a real like, it was just some show in New Jersey, like not around anything in particular. And you know, 3.5 times more people than have ever come to see us in an individual showing were there en masse singing everything. So I think things are all relative. I mean, I like where our record is. I like where we are as a band. I wouldn't want to be in another band other than our band. I really like what we get to do. We have a lot of freedom. We've been invited to play really great places. Like we're here. We've never done this before. We've headlined some festivals, and we never did that before. But I don't know what all of it means in terms of what we are as a band quite yet. I think I always need time. Like I think in 5 years I'll be able to look at this record in this period and be like, oh, I know what that is. Like I understand now better what we were when we were small, when we were starting in the first 3 records, they make a lot more sense to me now. But at the time, I was just like, can't see the forest for the trees, or don't know which way is up when you're on moving water, you know, just on waves, really. This is the most fun I've ever had making a record, and but I've tried not to worry too much about how it would work live. Just wanted to be free and just make the record. But figuring out how to do it live is a very funny thing. It's very like, the way we learn songs is we just work on the sounds, the technology, and how the sounds feel on space before we even think about the arrangement, before anybody learns a part. We just like get everything sounding the way it should. Because then when it comes to playing the song, if everything sounds right, we're standing in that room and everything sounds the way that we're used to hearing ourselves and the way the song sounds, everyone knows when it's right. And that's like a really magical thing to me. Like, there's not a lot of room. We don't improvise. Like, there's a lot of like structure to what we're doing. But when it's all right, every little nuance is like improvisation. I don't know how to explain. Like, it's not like a band that's just like free. We're just going to play whatever we want. It's more like a play, and each performance is a little bit different. And that is, for me, that's filled with tension, and that takes a lot of time. So learning these new songs for the new record is like, we've got everything worked out, but it takes time for us to be able to like do it with confidence. And so we'll sound check songs for show after show before we play them live. We'll just be playing them during sound check every night and not play them yet, and then be like, all right, let's throw ourselves in and, you know, make it happen tonight. People take for granted that there's tropes in doing things. There's just ways, methodologies that like you don't question, like the drums go in the back, you know, and it's like, why? I mean, there's nothing inherently good about it. Just that's what happened. It's a holdover from like big bands when the drums would be at the back driving everyone forward. The drums were louder, made more sense. You put the brass in the back. It's like an orchestral sort of like, but the drums are no longer louder. On stage, the drums are certainly not the loudest thing in a modern band. Guitar amplification has changed that completely. So there's no point, there's no like acoustical reason to put the drums in the back. And once we thought about that and how important rhythm is to us, it's like, well, suddenly I want the drums right there. And when we would rehearse, I would never stand with my back to Pat. Rehearsing, it would be crazy. I'd want to stand right next to him, like right next to those drums, and like, you know, because while we are not James Brown's band, everything is a drum in our band. Similarly, like everything is a rhythmic instrument. So I want to be as close to the principal rhythmic instrument as I possibly can be. And once we did that, it's like that just made the most sense to us. And then as we expanded, as we added like the Gavin Reyna world behind us and the piano and stuff, it just wound up being there's no more room except for behind. And it also meant that there's a bigger world to do that modular synthesizer space, because otherwise that'd be really compressed up front. So by putting the drums up front, we have a bigger world for expanding, like a grand piano and the modular synth stuff, and then a whole percussion world. But man, if I had it my way, everyone would be really close to me in a little semicircle. This is best. Like, this is the best I could get.